Alex Porter was just an ordinary guy. A little strange, sure. He had the kind of quirks that made people give him sideways glances, like his obsession with collecting wind chimes or his bizarre ability to feel the weather. But he wasn't anyone extraordinary. At least, that's what he thought. This morning was just like any other. He woke up at 6:45 a.m., stretched his legs out of bed, and squinted at the sunlight streaming through his blinds. He groggily checked his phone for messages, mostly work stuff, a few spam emails, and the one from his best friend, Greg. Ready to hit the gym tonight? Alex sighed. He hated the gym. But Greg was persistent, so he texted back, maybe. I'll try not to embarrass myself. After a cup of coffee that was more sludge than brew, Alex pulled on a wrinkled shirt and threw his backpack over one shoulder. He glanced in the mirror, at his messy hair and 5 o'clock shadow. No one cares, Alex, he muttered to himself, stepping out into the hallway. The building's elevator beeped as it arrived, and he walked inside. As the elevator doors closed with a soft ding, Alex checked his reflection again, but this time, something caught his eye. It wasn't a shadow. It was something odd. For a split second, the air around him shimmered. Almost like a mirage, but without the heat. He blinked hard, confused, but the feeling passed. His phone buzzed again. They know. The text was from an unknown number. He stared at it for a few moments, wondering if it was a prank. Greg, he typed back. No response. The elevator hummed as it descended. When the doors slid open, Alex stepped out onto the busy streets of the city. People rushed past him, the pulse of the metropolis drowning out the ringing of his phone. He paused for a moment, watching a street vendor's cart spill over with fresh fruit. A bead of sweat formed on the back of his neck. That feeling. It was back. The air felt different. Shaking it off, Alex hurried toward his office building. He had to get to work. He was already late, but then a group of men in lab coats stepped out from the alley just ahead of him. They didn't walk like scientists. They moved like hunters. Their eyes were locked on him, and one of them, a man with graying hair and thin glasses, raised a hand, as though signaling the others. Alex froze. His heart skipped. Porter, the man called, his voice smooth and cold. We've been looking for you. Alex's stomach dropped. He'd never seen any of them before. And the look on their faces, it wasn't curiosity. It was intent. Malicious intent. Before he could make a move, one of the scientists lunged toward him. Reflexively, Alex stepped back and the ground under his feet trembled. A small crack formed in the concrete. The man was thrown backward with the force of an unseen wave. What the hell? Alex gasped, then it clicked. The feeling. The air around him was shifting. It was like the world itself was reacting to his emotions, his instincts. The scientist scrambled to his feet, shouting orders to the others. Get him. Alex's pulse raced. He turned on his heel and bolted down the street, desperate to escape the madmen in lab coats. But the ground beneath him seemed to obey his frantic movements. The road buckled, sending debris flying, as if the city itself was bending to his will. A car sped toward him. Without thinking, Alex flung his hands out, and a gust of wind swept the vehicle to the side, tossing it into a nearby storefront. He gasped, eyes wide, but the wind didn't stop. It swirled around him, chaotic and erratic, like a storm unleashed. He could feel the earth shaking beneath his feet. What was happening? Stop him, a voice shouted. A few more men in dark suits sprinted after him, but Alex wasn't about to let them catch him. Not with whatever was happening to him now. Panic surged in his chest, and suddenly, a burst of fire shot out from his palms. He stumbled, narrowly avoiding torching a streetlight. The flames flickered and dissipated just as quickly as they came, leaving only a trail of smoke. Alex skidded around a corner and ducked into an alley. His chest was heaving, and his mind was spinning. What the hell just happened? What was that power, the men in lab coats, still in pursuit, were closing in fast. Alex didn't know what else to do. His brain was still processing, but his body acted on instinct. He clenched his fists. Another gust of wind ripped through the alley, swirling violently around the scientists, lifting them off the ground like rag dolls. That he could feel it. He could feel the air, the heat of the fire, the pull of the earth, the rush of the water. They were his. In a blur, Alex bolted up a fire escape, the wind lifting him with unnatural ease, and disappeared into the shadows of the city. He didn't stop running until he reached his apartment, barely able to catch his breath. He locked the door behind him and collapsed onto the couch, hands trembling. His phone buzzed again. He didn't even need to look at the screen. He knew who it was. "Alex, you don't know me, but you have to listen," the text said. "They're after you. I can help." The words were simple, but the weight of them was undeniable. In the quiet of his apartment, Alex stared at the phone. Who was this? And more importantly, why did they think he needed help? There was only one thing he knew for sure: his life had just changed. Meanwhile, deep beneath the city, Dr. Grant paced in the sterile, dimly lit laboratory. His glasses glinted in the harsh light, his face twisted in concentration. The tracking device on his desk buzzed, and he immediately checked it. Target acquired, the display read. Alex Porter. Genetic anomaly. Unmatched potential. Dr. Grant's lips curled into a thin smile. "Soon," he murmured. "Soon, the power of the elements will be ours." As Alex sat in his apartment, trying to make sense of the events, he was unaware of just how far-reaching the conspiracy was. The scientists weren't just after his powers. They were after something more dangerous: his genetic code. His genes were the key to unlocking an entirely new form of human evolution, one that could control the 4 classical elements, and they would stop at nothing to obtain it. Alex's apartment felt like a hollow shell now, empty in ways he hadn't understood before. The quiet hum of the refrigerator, the light buzzing of the neon sign outside his window, it all felt distant. As if the world was moving on without him. But Alex couldn't move forward. Not until he understood what the hell had just happened to him. He sat cross-legged on the couch, staring at the phone in his hands. The text from the mysterious number was still there: "They're after you. I can help." There was no name. No clue as to who had sent it. But the urgency in those words was unmistakable. "They're after you." The knock on his door was loud, sharp, and unexpected. Alex flinched, heart leaping into his throat. He stood, a quick jolt of panic running through him. He hadn't heard anyone approach. No footsteps, no chatter. Nothing. He moved cautiously to the door, his hand hovering over the knob. A cold sweat ran down his back. Another knock. This one louder. Almost demanding. He swallowed hard, then looked through the peephole. His breath caught in his chest. It was a woman. Tall, with a dark jacket and a confident stance. She didn't look like a neighbor. Or a friend. She looked purposeful. Without thinking, Alex swung open the door. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded, trying to steady his voice. She didn't flinch. If anything, she seemed unfazed by his aggression. She was wearing a black leather jacket and tight jeans, a worn backpack slung over one shoulder. Her hair was pulled back into a messy ponytail, and her eyes were sharp, calculating. She was younger than he expected, mid-20s at most, with an air of someone who'd seen too much too soon. "My name's Maya," she said, glancing past him into the apartment. "I know what happened to you." Alex didn't invite her in, but she didn't wait for an invitation. She pushed past him, her boots clicking sharply on the hardwood floor. "Who are you?" Alex demanded again, this time with more force. "How do you know about all this?" Maya took a breath, scanning the room quickly before sitting on the couch without asking. She kicked her boots up onto the coffee table. "You're a walking genetic gold mine, Alex. Your genes are special. Unique. You've got the ability to control the 4 elements. Earth, air, fire, water. She paused. And people want that. Badly. Alex blinked, feeling a sharp sting in his chest. What do you mean, people? What's going on? Maya crossed her arms, eyes narrowing as she sized him up. You haven't figured it out yet, have you? She said slowly. You're not just some regular guy with a strange talent. Those people who came after you today? They weren't scientists. They were hunters. And they work for a man named Dr. Grant. The name hit Alex like a punch in the gut. He remembered the man in the lab coat, the leader of the group who'd been after him. But Dr. Grant, who was he really? Maya continued before Alex could ask more questions. Dr. Grant is a biotechnologist. A mad one, really. He's been running illegal experiments, trying to replicate powers like yours. But what makes you different is your gene code. It's raw. It's untapped potential. They want to steal it from you. And if they succeed, it'll be a nightmare. Alex felt a chill run through him, a wave of fear mixed with disbelief. What are you saying? They want to steal my genes? Maya nodded, her expression grim. Exactly. They're going to try again. And next time, they won't be so polite. I don't even understand how I did what I did today, Alex muttered, running a hand through his messy hair. I've never been able to do that. Not like that. What's happening to me? You're awakening, Maya said, her voice calm, like she was explaining something simple. The power you've got, it's always been there. But it's dormant. Your body just needs to learn how to control it. How to focus it. She paused, watching him carefully. I'm here to help you do that. Alex shook his head. Why would you help me? You just show up out of nowhere, and you expect me to believe this? I'm not a good guy, Maya said bluntly. I'm not here because I care about you. I'm here because I care about keeping those people from getting what they want. And right now, you're the key to stopping them. Alex hesitated. There was something off about her, something that didn't quite add up. But for some reason, he couldn't bring himself to push her out. Maybe it was the fear in his chest, the overwhelming confusion that kept him from making sense of anything. Maya gave a little smile, reading his thoughts. Look, I get it. This is all a lot to take in. But trust me on this, if you don't start learning how to control these powers, they will. And you'll be their puppet. Alex swallowed hard, then took a deep breath. He needed to process this. He needed answers. But there was one thing he knew for sure. He couldn't do this alone. Maya took out a small device from her bag, something that looked like a cross between a tablet and a handheld console. I've been tracking them for months. Dr. Grant's operation isn't just a few rogue scientists. It's a global network. And they've got more of your DNA than you think. She tapped a few buttons, bringing up an image of the city, a set of coordinates flashing on the screen. Right now, they're setting up a new lab. And you need to stop them before they can complete their work. Alex stood, a surge of adrenaline rushing through him. His heart was still racing, but something inside him clicked. He didn't know how he could control these powers. But he knew one thing. He wasn't going to sit around and wait to be hunted down like some kind of lab experiment. Let's go, Alex said, grabbing his jacket and heading for the door. He paused and looked back at Maya. You coming? Wouldn't miss it, she said, locking eyes with him. They made their way down the hallway and into the street. The city around them seemed completely unaware of the storm brewing in the shadows, unaware of the deadly game of cat and mouse that was about to unfold. The moment Alex stepped onto the sidewalk, the world around him seemed to vibrate. The air felt different. He felt it again, that rush, that charge in the atmosphere. The power that had surged through him earlier was still there, hidden just beneath the surface. They were close. Too close. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, this time more violently. Alex looked around, his eyes darting to the street, trying to make sense of what was happening. Maya grabbed his arm. "They're already here," she said, and then it happened. A man in a black suit appeared out of the crowd, flanked by two others. Their eyes locked on Alex immediately, and Alex knew, without a doubt, they were after him. Without warning, the man in the front raised his hand, and the air around them snapped to attention. Alex felt the pressure building in his chest. A gust of wind swirled around them, intense and fast. Alex wasn't sure what he was doing, but he felt the rush of heat flare up in his palm. He thrust his hand forward, sending a burst of fire into the oncoming wind. The fire twisted, controlled, and lashed out. The air hissed with the sound of it meeting the wind. "Get down!" Maya shouted, pulling Alex to the side as one of the men released a violent burst of water from a sleek black device in his hand. It splashed onto the pavement, creating a slick surface, but Alex was already moving, dodging out of the way. "They've got your powers," Maya said, her voice grim. "But they're not as good at controlling them." Alex gritted his teeth and flexed his hands, feeling the energy flowing through him, the elements responding to his every impulse. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep this up, but for the first time, he felt alive. This was his fight now. And he wasn't going to lose. The men in black suits weren't ordinary henchmen. Alex could feel that. As they advanced, their movements sharp and calculated, he realized they were more than just armed thugs. They were equipped. They had the same kind of precision and control that Alex was only beginning to understand. The man with the water device took a step forward, his boots making a sharp sound on the wet concrete. The other two flanked him, each holding a device in their hands, something resembling guns, but Alex could tell they weren't standard weapons. No, these were tools for something more specialized. The man with the water gun aimed it at Alex and squeezed the trigger. A torrent of water shot out, slamming into Alex's chest with brutal force. His body staggered back, the impact knocking the wind out of him, but he instinctively braced himself. He hadn't realized how strong the water would be. It was like being hit with a tsunami in an alley, but he wasn't down for long. The water was already pooling around him, slick and dangerous, but as it rushed toward him, he did what he knew best. He didn't think. He felt. He focused. The ground beneath him cracked. The wind kicked up around him, and the air grew heavy, like the pressure before a storm. With a force he couldn't explain, Alex thrust his palms outward, and the water in front of him suddenly evaporated. A wave of heat surged through the alley, turning the rain into steam, and with it, the water dissolved into nothingness. The two men on the flanks didn't hesitate. One of them raised a device that looked like a handheld cannon, and the other brought a sleek, metallic staff that hummed with energy. They were ready for him to fight back. But they didn't know what was coming. "Move!" Maya shouted as she grabbed Alex's arm, pulling him into an alleyway just as another water blast from the man with the cannon nearly hit them. The blast hit the corner of the building, sending a spray of debris flying into the air. Alex had to duck as the pieces of concrete rained down. The wind roared louder now, whipping around them like a living thing. Alex's senses were on fire, the world sharp and clear, as though every particle in the air was buzzing with energy. He took a deep breath, feeling the shift in the atmosphere. The elements were responding to him, bending to his will, but he couldn't get distracted. They were closing in, and he had to act fast. One of the men with the staff took a step forward. He aimed it at Alex, and without warning, the ground beneath them exploded. A blast of earth erupted from the sidewalk, sending dust and rubble into the air. Alex had to leap sideways to avoid getting buried under the debris. The man with the staff had just created a localized earthquake. Damn it! Alex cursed, pushing himself up from the ground. His body was still tingling from the earth-shattering force, but he didn't have time to waste. He couldn't just react. He had to control. A voice inside his head whispered the solution. "You are the elements. The wind, the fire, the earth. They weren't just tools. They were parts of him, extensions of his body, extensions of his mind. They followed his thoughts, his feelings that he focused on the ground beneath him, his feet digging into the cracked pavement. The earth responded to his command. He could feel the energy beneath him, the pulse of the planet. In a blink, the ground surged upward in a wall of rock, blocking the next attack from the man with the staff. The shield of stone held firm, protecting him just as another blast of water hit it, splashing harmlessly to the side. Maya looked back, impressed but tense. "Nice," she muttered, but her eyes flickered over the advancing enemies. "Don't get cocky. There's more coming." She was right. The air was charged, thick with the sound of the wind whipping faster, the distant hum of engines, and the sense of movement closing in on them. More figures appeared from the shadows, moving in sync. Alex could feel it, a different kind of energy, more precise and disciplined. They were coordinated. The scientists weren't just sending random operatives after him, they were organizing. And that scared Alex more than anything else. If they were organized, it meant they were prepared. If they were prepared, they knew more than they were letting on. One of the figures in the back of the group stepped forward. Unlike the others, he wasn't holding any device. Instead, his hands were raised, palms out, like he was about to conjure something. "What the hell?" Alex muttered, his breath coming in sharp, shallow bursts. This guy wasn't like the others. He wasn't using technology. He wasn't even reacting like a normal human would. He was connected. Connected to the elements in a way Alex could barely understand. The man raised his hands higher, and the wind picked up again, turning into a violent, unrelenting gust that screamed through the alley. Alex barely had time to react. The air around him compressed, like a vice around his chest, forcing him to his knees. "Alex!" Maya shouted, but her voice was faint over the roar of the wind. The man with his hands raised smiled. His eyes glowed faintly, a cold, calculating glimmer. "It's no use, Porter. You can't fight us. We have perfected what you are. We have everything you have, and more." It wasn't just the wind. Alex could feel the earth shifting again, as though the ground were moving beneath him. His connection to the world around him, the elements, his instincts were fighting to push through, to fight back. But the man was strong. Too strong. "Focus, Alex." Maya's voice cut through the chaos like a lifeline. "Remember what you are. The wind, the earth, the fire, they're part of you. You control them. Not the other way around." She was right. For the first time, Alex realized that the power didn't come from outside. It came from within him. The elements didn't belong to the world, they belonged to him. And if he was going to win, he needed to accept that. To stop fighting it, Alex closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and felt the wind swirling around him, tugging at him, pressing against him. The fire inside his chest flared, a quiet warmth, then a rush. He could feel the crackling energy beneath his skin, the pulse of life, the force of the planet, the current of air that surrounded them all. It was everything. It was him. With a single thought, Alex reached out and called to the wind. He wasn't controlling it. He was becoming it. The wind, once a violent, crushing force, now obeyed his every whim, wrapping around him in a gentle, guiding breeze. His feet left the ground, and he rose, the wind lifting him into the air. The earth beneath him followed. With a thought, he lifted a shard of rock, sharp and jagged, into the air, and with the next breath, he sent it hurtling toward the man controlling the wind. That it struck him square in the chest, sending him crashing back into the wall of the building. The wind died immediately, as if the very atmosphere had exhaled in relief. The others, taken aback, scrambled to react. Alex felt the surge of power, the burning heat in his hands, the rush of energy in his veins. But he wasn't out of danger yet. They were still closing in. The ground shook again, but this time, Alex didn't flinch. He stepped forward, focusing on the earth beneath him, and as the attackers approached, he sent a wave of rock and dirt in their direction, forcing them to scatter. The earth bent to his will, pushing them back as the wind howled again. "Get up," Maya said, her voice firm. She hadn't faltered once, even through all the chaos. "We're not done yet." Alex nodded, his eyes steely, his chest heaving with adrenaline. He'd just taken on the best they had, but this was only the beginning. As the scientists regrouped, Alex understood something else. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a fight for control. A fight to prove that the elements belonged to him and he wasn't going to let them be stolen. Not now. Not ever.